Hey Stoic warriors, you're bleeding attention through wounds you didn't know existed. Every notification, every sideways glance, every unread message, they're all tiny vampires draining the life force you were meant to use for your own dreams. You've become a marionette and the strings. They're held by people who don't even remember your last name. Right now, someone you've never met is living their best life, completely oblivious to your existence. Meanwhile, you're crafting responses to imaginary arguments with them, defending yourself against accusations they'll never make in conversations that will never happen. You're shadow boxing with ghosts while your real life stands in the corner, abandoned and gasping for attention. The ancient Stoics called this spiritual suicide, the slow assassination of self through the worship of external validation. Marcus Aurelius scribbled desperately in his journal by candlelight. The opinion of 10,000 people is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. The Emperor of Rome, commander of legions, was begging himself to stop caring what peasants thought of his sandals. You clicked on this video because somewhere buried beneath the rubble of other people's expectations, a voice is screaming. That voice is you, the real you. Not the carefully curated version, not the people pleaser, not the walking apology, the raw, unfiltered, magnificent beast that you've been tranquilizing with the drug of external approval. We're about to perform surgery without anesthesia. We're going to rip out the parasitic need for validation that's been feeding on your potential. Some of you will feel naked without it. Good. Clothes made of other people's opinions were never meant to fit anyway. These 7 lessons aren't philosophy. They're weapons. Weapons against the tyranny of the crowd, the dictatorship of public opinion, the slavery of needing to be liked. Each one will feel like electricity through your spine because your soul recognizes truth when it hears it, even after years of being buried under. Seneca warned, the willing destiny guides them. The unwilling destiny drags them. You can walk into this transformation or you can be dragged. Either way, after today, the person who needed everyone's permission to exist dies here. Before we light this funeral pyre, commit, like this video as a blood oath to yourself. Subscribe and hit the bell because this rebellion against mediocrity doesn't end today. Share it with someone drowning in the same ocean of approval seeking. And don't you dare skip ahead. Transformation doesn't have a fast forward button. Type this battle cry in the comments. I am the storm, not the debris. Now, let's begin. Your addiction to emotional slavery. You're a junkie and your drug has no name. Every time someone validates you, dopamine floods your brain like heroin. Every criticism, withdrawal symptoms that leave you shaking, desperate for the next hit of approval. You've become a slave who forged their own chains, then swallowed the key. Epictetus, born in actual chains, discovered something that made him freer than his masters. No one can hurt you without your permission. A slave teaching emperors about freedom because he understood that the real slavery happens between your ears in that space where you've given strangers the remote control to your emotions. Watch yourself tomorrow. Someone compliments your work. You float. Someone ignores your message. You sink. You're an emotional yo-yo. And everyone else is pulling the string. You've outsourced your mood to people who can't even manage their own. You've made your happiness a democracy where everyone gets a vote except you. The sickest part, you're grateful for the cage. At least in prison, you don't have to make decisions. At least as a slave, you don't carry the weight of freedom. You've fallen in love with your chains because they excuse you from the terrifying responsibility of being yourself. Remember when you were a child before the world taught you to apologize for taking up space. You didn't need permission to laugh. You didn't need consensus to cry. You existed in pure, undiluted authenticity until someone convinced you that being yourself was a crime punishable by rejection. The Stoics knew something revolutionary. Other people's opinions are literally none of your business. Their thoughts exist in their heads, powered by their experiences, filtered through their trauma. You're trying to control a narrative being written in a language you don't speak in a book you'll never read. Every time you change yourself to fit someone else's mold, you're committing identity suicide. You're murdering the person you were meant to become, replacing them with a generic placeholder that offends no one and inspires nothing. Starting today, you're going cold turkey. No more emotional slavery. When someone judges you, let them. Their opinion belongs to them. Don't steal it. When someone praises you, thank them, but don't mainline it into your veins. You are not a democracy. You are a dictatorship, and you're the only one with voting rights. The massacre of your authentic self. Every day you're committing murder. The victim, every version of yourself that might upset someone. You're a serial killer of your own potential, leaving a trail of could-have-beens behind you like corpses. The weapon, the word sorry, which you use like a machete, hacking away at anything that makes you stand out. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private notes, "Never meant for us to see. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." The emperor was calling himself out on his own cowardice. And if the most powerful man in Rome struggled with this, what chance do you think you have? Without conscious effort, you become a shapeshifter, morphing into whatever the room needs. With your family, you're one person. At work, another. With friends, you fragment into multiple personalities, each one designed to extract maximum approval with minimum friction. You're not a person anymore. You're a playlist. And everyone else holds the remote. The genocide of authenticity starts small. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny. You agree with opinions that make your skin crawl. You swallow your words like razor blades, feeling them cut your throat on the way down. Each betrayal of self seems insignificant, but you're dying from 1,000 paper cuts to the soul. Here's the raw truth that will split you open. The people you're performing for, they smell the fakeness like blood in water. Humans have predator instincts for inauthenticity. They might not consciously know you're acting, but their subconscious recoils. You're repelling the very people you're trying to attract. The Stoics practiced something called prohairesis, the discipline of choice. Every moment presents a fork in the road, authentic expression or performative submission. Every time you choose performance, you're voting for your own extinction. You're collaborating with the enemy. Your authentic self isn't dead. It's buried alive, screaming beneath the concrete of conformity you've poured over it. Every anxiety attack, every moment of inexplicable sadness, every flash of rage, that's your true self trying to claw its way back to the surface. Today, we dig up the body. Today, we perform CPR on the person you were before. The world convinced you that being yourself was a crime. Today, we stop the massacre and start the resurrection. The parasites feeding on your potential. There are leeches attached to your spirit and you're the one who invited them to feast. Every person whose opinion you worship, every stranger whose judgment you fear, they're parasites, gorging themselves on energy meant for your dreams. You're a walking blood bank and everyone's got their fangs in you. Seneca wrote while watching Rome burn. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. But here's what he didn't say. That imaginary suffering is eating your real life like cancer. You're so busy fighting battles in your head that you're losing the war in reality. You're hemorrhaging life force into scenarios that exist nowhere but in the twisted theater of your mind. These parasites have names. The colleague who makes you second guess every email. The ex whose ghost still edits your decisions. The parent whose voice lives rent-free in your head, criticizing choices they don't even know you're making. You're hosting a party for vampires and you're the only item on the menu. Watch how they feed. You post something authentic. Immediately you wonder what they will think. You make a decision. Instantly, you're calculating how to explain it to people who didn't ask. You're living your life like it's a courtroom, and everyone else is the jury. But here's the secret that will shatter your skull. The courtroom is empty. You're prosecuting yourself in front of empty chairs. The Stoics knew that attention is currency, and you're spending yours like a drunk billionaire, throwing it at anyone who passes by, begging them to tell you you're worthy. Meanwhile, your dreams are starving to death in the corner, too weak to even whisper anymore. Every minute you spend worrying about someone's opinion is a minute stolen from building your empire. Every hour you waste crafting the perfect response to imaginary criticism is an hour your future self will never get back. You're robbing yourself at gunpoint, then wondering why you're broke. The parasites only have power because you keep feeding them. Your fear is their food. Your need for validation is their oxygen. Cut the supply line and watch them shrivel. Stop explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. Stop defending yourself to judges who aren't judging. Stop apologizing for existing to people who don't care that you're alive. Today we perform an exorcism. Today we rip these parasites out by the root and burn them in the fire of indifference. The graveyard of who you could have been. Walk with me through a cemetery that doesn't exist on any map. Here lie all the versions of you that never got to live. The writer you murdered because someone said your work was trash. The dancer you buried because someone laughed. The entrepreneur you suffocated because someone said you'd fail. This graveyard is full and you're the serial killer who filled it. Epictetus taught, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. But he missed something. The greatest poverty is the assassination of potential. You're not broke because you lack money. You're broke because you've bankrupted your soul trying to purchase approval with the currency of conformity. Each tombstone tells a story of cowardice disguised as practicality. Here lies the artist, killed by the fear of criticism. Here lies the lover, murdered by the terror of rejection. You've committed more murders than any dictator in history, and all your victims share your DNA. The Stoics believed in memento mori, remember, you will die, but you've perverted it. Instead of remembering death to inspire life, you're killing yourself daily to avoid the judgment of the living. You're performing your own funeral while you're still breathing. Eulogizing dreams that never got to draw their first breath. Feel the weight of those ghosts. Every path not taken, every word not spoken, every risk not risked. They're haunting you. That anxiety you can't explain. That's the screaming of your murdered potential. That depression you can't shake. That's the grief for all the selves you've slaughtered. You think you're playing it safe, but you're playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun. Every time you choose conformity over authenticity, you pull the trigger. Every time you silence your truth to keep the peace, another version of you drops dead. The graveyard grows every day. Tomorrow you'll bury the person who wanted to speak up in that meeting. Next week you'll murder the one who wanted to start that project. Next year you'll stand over a cemetery so vast you won't remember what it looked like, empty. But here's the resurrection spell. Those versions of you aren't dead. They're in a coma. Every time you choose courage over comfort, one of them gasps back to life. Every time you pick authenticity over approval, another grave opens and out crawls a piece of your soul you thought was gone forever. Your consent to emotional terrorism. You're being held hostage by terrorists who don't exist. Every day you negotiate with the fictional fear of what someone might think. You're paying ransom to ghosts, surrendering to enemies who never declared war, signing peace treaties with armies that were never assembled. Marcus Aurelius, while plague ravaged Rome and wars pressed its borders, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The emperor discovered what you haven't. The only terrorist you need to fear is the one you've created in your mind. You've signed a contract written in invisible ink, agreeing to terms you never read with people who never asked you to sign. The contract says, "I hereby surrender all rights to my happiness contingent upon universal approval." You're honoring an agreement that doesn't exist. Paying dues to a club that never invited you. Listen to the terrorism happening in your head. If I say this, they'll think; if I do that, everyone will. Who is they? Who is everyone? You're being terrorized by pronouns without faces. Tortured by an anonymous mob that exists only in the paranoid parliament of your imagination. The Stoics understood something revolutionary. You're not responsible for the emotional climate of every room you enter. You're not a thermostat for other people's comfort. You're not an emotional janitor cleaning up everyone's feelings while your own pile up like garbage. Every time you censor yourself to prevent someone's potential discomfort, you're negotiating with terrorists. Every time you dim your light so others won't feel dark, you're paying ransom. You've become Stockholm Syndrome incarnate, falling in love with the very fears that keep you captive. The emotional terrorism only works because you've given it your consent. You've handed over your passwords, your security codes, your nuclear launch buttons to people who don't even know they have them. You're living in a prison where you're both the guard and the prisoner, and you've swallowed the key. Today we revoke consent. Today we stop negotiating with the terrorists of potential judgment. Today we realize that the only person holding the gun to your head is you. And your finger isn't even on the trigger. It's on an empty chamber you keep clicking, wondering why you're still afraid of the sound. The addiction to your own suffering. You're in love with your chains. You've romanticized your pain until it became your identity. Without the drama of caring what others think, who would you even be? You've become a suffering addict, mainlining misery because at least pain makes you feel something in the numbness of your performed existence. Seneca observed, "The willing destiny guides them. The unwilling destiny drags them." But here's the twisted truth. You're not being dragged. You're crawling toward your torture, begging for more. You've developed a taste for the whip, a hunger for the humiliation of needing approval from people who wouldn't spit on you if you were on fire. Watch yourself create suffering from nothing. Someone doesn't wave back. You craft a 3-act tragedy. A text goes unread. You write a mental dissertation on your worthlessness. You're not just experiencing pain. You're manufacturing it in the factory of your mind, working overtime to meet your daily quota of agony. The Stoics called this passion not in the modern sense, but as the disease of being controlled by external forces. You've caught the plague, and instead of seeking the cure, you're licking the wounds to keep them infected. You're patient zero in your own epidemic of unnecessary suffering. Here's what will crack your chest open. You're addicted to the suffering because it excuses you from greatness. As long as you're a victim of others' opinions, you never have to risk being magnificent. As long as you're paralyzed by fear of judgment, you never have to face the terror of your own potential. Every story you tell about why you can't be yourself is a bedtime tale you whisper to keep yourself small. They wouldn't understand. People would judge. Everyone would leave. These aren't predictions. They're sedatives you're injecting to avoid the withdrawal symptoms of breaking free. You've built a shrine to your suffering, lighting candles for every time someone hurt you, keeping vigil over wounds that should have healed years ago. You're a museum curator of your own pain. Carefully preserving every slight, every rejection, every harsh word in climate-controlled cases of memory. The addiction ends when you realize the dealer and the junkie are the same person. You're cooking the drugs and shooting them up. You're writing the prescriptions for your own poison. The laboratory of suffering only exists because you keep showing up for work. Today we burn down the lab. Today we go cold turkey on manufactured misery. The revolution of ruthless indifference. This is where you become dangerous, not to others, to the system that feeds on your fear. When you master the art of ruthless indifference to external validation, you become ungovernable. You become the kind of person that makes the matrix glitch because you're no longer playing by the rules that keep everyone else enslaved. Marcus Aurelius, in the loneliest position on earth, discovered the ultimate weapon. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? He realized that caring about others' opinions was just anger turned inward. Rage at yourself for not meeting impossible standards set by people who don't matter. Ruthless indifference isn't apathy. It's selective investment. It's knowing that your emotional energy is sacred currency and refusing to spend it on anyone who hasn't earned the right to an opinion about your existence. It's the financial discipline of the soul where you stop going broke trying to buy approval from people who will never sell. The revolution starts with a simple realization. Everyone you're trying to impress is going to die. Their opinions will turn to dust. Their judgments will decompose with their bodies. You're killing yourself for the approval of future corpses, destroying your present, for the validation of people who won't exist in a century. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining loss to appreciate the present. But practice this instead. Imagine everyone whose opinion you fear as skeletons because that's what they are. Future skeletons whose bones won't remember whether they approved of you or not. You're genuflecting before tomorrow's cemetery, praying to headstones that haven't been carved yet. When you embrace ruthless indifference, something miraculous happens. The people who matter reveal themselves. The noise falls away. And in the silence, you hear the only voices that count. The ones that love you without conditions, that see you without filters, that accept you without edits. But here's the apocalyptic truth. Even those voices don't determine your worth. Even the people who love you don't get to define you. You are a universe unto yourself, a complete ecosystem that doesn't require external validation to photosynthesize meaning. You're the sun, not the planet orbiting someone else's light. This revolution isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It happens in the quiet moments when you choose yourself without apology. When you speak your truth without calculating the response, when you exist without permission, love without condition, and live without seeking approval from the jury of the damned. The Stoics knew the ultimate paradox. When you stop needing everyone to love you, the right people start to. When you quit auditioning for approval, you get cast in the role of yourself. When you stop asking for permission to exist, existence itself becomes your permission slip. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be yourself. And if those two things coincide, beautiful. If they don't, you choose yourself every single time. You've just witnessed your own funeral and resurrection. The person who clicked on this video, that approval-seeking, validation-addicted, people-pleasing phantom, is dead. What remains is raw, unfiltered, unapologetic you. The 7 lessons you've absorbed aren't suggestions. They're commandments from your future self, the one who broke free and looked back in amazement that you ever lived in chains. Every word was a key. And now every lock is open. The prison was never locked from the outside. Marcus Aurelius' last words before death were, "Go to the rising sun, for I am already setting." Your sun is rising. The old you is setting. This isn't an ending. It's a beginning so violent and beautiful that your former self wouldn't recognize the phoenix emerging from its ashes. If this video split you open and rearranged your atoms, like it? If you felt your soul catch fire, subscribe. Share this with someone still bleeding from the wound of needing approval. Comment below with your declaration of independence. Remember, you are not an opinion poll. You are not a democracy. You are a dictator of your own existence. And the revolution starts now. Final battle cry. I am ungovernable. Go forth and be dangerous.